Yeah, so let's reflect on the last 12 weeks and our journey together. And you were unique in the way you reached out. You didn't come through the website, you came on email. And share with me what led you to reaching out and how you are unique from my other clients.
Yeah, so I had been following you, or have been following you for, I want to say about 3 years, but I can't really remember. So I've known what you've been doing for quite a long time, and it's all of your posts have been really helpful for me, especially when my eldest was a bit younger and I kind of like struggled with how to cope with his tantrums and that kind of thing. And he is quite a sensitive child. So I started seeing a lot more accounts around that time a few years ago, similar to yours, where, okay, conscious parenting, this is a thing, didn't know about this. And just learning all about the nervous system and dysregulation and how there is a whole nother side of human beings that people don't really talk about very much, unless you're in the world of psychology
Yeah,
or, child behavior specialists, anything like that, about it. But otherwise, people, you don't go on the school run and say, my child was really dysregulated this morning.
yeah.
So,
You do now.
I was like, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, I trained last year with the Mindset Coach Academy. So I became a coach. Well, I was qualified as of December last year, and then it got to January, and I was like, "There's something missing in
Mm,
my skill set. I just need to, I want to be. My niche is I want to be a coach. My niche is parenting. It's always been parenting. It's something that I
mm,
hold like pretty close to my heart, and I want to help other parents. But I felt a bit like I just feel like I'm not doing my own parenting very well at the moment.
mm,
So that's when I thought, who can help me with this? Okay, well, Fiona looks like the only person who can do this. You're in the UK. You're obviously amazing at what you do, and that's when I sent you the email. Um, and what makes me unique, I guess, is the fact that I'm on a similar mission to you. I want to
yeah,
be a parenting coach that helps other parents, and I want to, and it's for the greater good. It's not, obviously I want to earn a living and that's important, but
yeah,
what for me is the most important thing is it's all about a sense of purpose. And I've been doing a job, my day job for the last kind of 15 years has been like admin based, and I've just found it really boring. And I feel like that journey needs to end now. And I'm just like, right,
yeah,
this is my mission. I'm really interested in just helping other people. And so
yeah,
obviously getting your support with the 12-week program was amazing. But it's also helped me to realize, okay, this is within other people's reach as well. And if they just get that bit of guidance and support through coaching, then yeah, hopefully I can do that as well. So yes, there was a sort of two-sided coin for it for me. It's obviously going to help me with my work, but also has helped me as a parent as well.
yeah. And I'm just going to check my laptop because it's saying that it's getting hot, which is rare in the UK. So hopefully it doesn't melt down and shut down. But if it does, we'll just log back on.
Yeah.
And yeah, and when you sent that email, there was a part of you that was a bit worried, wasn't there? Because you were like, "Oh, I'm doing the same thing as you. I'm not sure whether you'll want to work with me." Just talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I was very paranoid because I think I'd been wanting to reach out to you when I was still studying for my coaching accreditation last year. So in 2022, I was like, I feel like I could do with some coaching myself that's parenting based, but what if that person is going to think that I'm just, stealing ideas from them? And, I was
Mm,
just getting a real kind of like, oh, they're just going to think that I'm wanting to copy them. Or so I was very much like, I don't know if it's the right thing to do. So I just needed to word the email to you, obviously, to ask if you were okay with it, which obviously, yeah, very kindly, you were just absolutely fine with it.
yeah,
And I think that's the thing about this kind of work is, like you mentioned earlier, we're not, parenting coaches who are really trying to help people. We're not here to compete with each other, are we? We're just here
no,
to just help people, and it's
yeah,
all for the, I just feel like it's going to help generations to come. It's not just going to help the next
absolutely,
generation. It's going to filter through. So yeah,
yeah,
that's what
100%.
excites me. And the fact that you replied back and were kind of on the same page as me made me think, oh, okay, cool. So it was
Yeah,
exciting to get to work with you.
yeah. It's the most meaningful work, isn't it? Doing parent coaching and helping other people, and as you say, like helps generations to come. So I can't really think of anything that's more meaningful than that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
share with people how old your kids are and sort of what space you were in with them when you did reach out. Because was it February that you reached out?
Yeah, I think it was about February time, wasn't it? So
February, and it's now June. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Freddie, my eldest was he turned 6 in February, and my youngest is 3. He'll be 4 soon. So yeah, quite interesting ages in terms of getting one of them's at school, one of them's at nursery, and just dealing with those kind of like dysregulated moments, but also
Yeah.
it's and quite a lot has actually happened in that 12 weeks. We've had like really big shifts in terms of, I'm just thinking back to when my youngest was, when we started the course, he was still doing things that were like really irritating me at the time. Like he was like wanting to go to sleep at night and settle with me next to him, and I'd have to lie
Yeah.
next to him for at least an hour. That's kind of like shifted, and I don't think it's because I've not like forced it. I think it's
Yeah.
just because maybe he's felt safer around me because of like my nervous system being more regulated and me being like, I don't know, just a bit kind of like more connected to him. And my eldest was, there was a few things that he was having sort of struggles with, like walking into school. And that's actually shifted as well. I'm just like kind of like realizing how many things have actually positively changed. And
Yeah.
yeah, it has been really, really helpful. And sometimes you don't actually realize what's been changing until it's
No.
happened,
Well, yeah,
and
that's why it's good to like reflect, isn't it? Because sometimes we can, and we'll go into this in a bit, we can think of, oh, but we're still struggling with this, but we don't remember all of the things that we've done, the difference we've made, the nervous system regulation, how that filters down to the children, and how some things have changed in 12 weeks, which is really a short period of time, isn't it, when you think about it?
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you're in the midst of something really tricky, you sort of think, oh God, it's going to be like this forever. And it's just all consuming. So yeah, to think within 12 weeks, we've actually changed quite a bit is, yeah, actually really, it's really cool. So yeah.
Yeah. And how do you regulate yourself, you know, to the best of your ability if you're struggling with the kids, whether there's any situations that you can think of, how would you maybe take a step back and sort of help your nervous system? Do you have any go-to things that you would do or things that help you just in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I make time for myself, and
Good.
I have been quite good at doing this in the last kind of year or so. So that was something that I was working on prior to doing the course. And so I make sure I always have a walk in nature every single morning. Like that's a non-negotiable, and it just sets me
Yeah.
up for the day. Um, I make sure I go in the garden throughout the day. I'm very lucky to work from home, so I can do that. And just again, the nature helps me. And
Yeah.
so that's like something that's like a foundation for me. And then other things are, just looking after myself in terms of like, well, I try my best to kind of eat well. And because one thing that I was finding at the beginning of the course with you was there would be days where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I just feel like starving. And then I'm just like, why have I forgotten to eat? And so, yeah,
Mm.
things like that, I've actually learned to get better with, like, and holding in like needing a wee and stuff. It's just like, why
Yeah.
was I doing that?
Yeah.
And we talked about it on, at the beginning of our program, your program, where you said, when you're at school, you just, you sort of learn to sit there all day long. Well, you sit there for a
Yeah.
long time before you get to have a break and have a wee, because your teachers never kind of let you have a wee, and things like that. It's just crazy. So yeah, it's interesting to see how many things you don't let your body do. So there's those things, but also I think in the moment, in the midst of children being very, if they're screaming and everything's a bit chaotic and I'm kind
Mm.
of feeling triggered, for me, I need to take a step back, go and get a glass of water, something where I'm like having a cold water drink helps me. And then I just kind of like take a breather, and I sometimes have to say to the children, I just need a couple of minutes. I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed. And I just explain to them, like, as because they do understand.
Yeah.
And but it's, I think at the beginning it was really hard to, because when they're screaming and they're kind of like having a difficult moment, you cannot get them to listen. They are not listening. They're in their own kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, completely dysregulated. And so to just be with them and to help them calm down and to offer a hug. Sometimes my eldest really does not want any social contact. Like he doesn't want a
Yeah.
hug. and I say, I will just sit here and wait for you, Freddie, to calm down. And, you know, just those little kind of like almost tips, but it's just knowing what to do for the child. But some children want one thing, some children are just like, please no touching. Like, you
Yeah.
know, he wants to often just get away. So I just often just leave him because that's what he wants. Whereas my
Yeah.
youngest very much be like wanting a hug most of the time. And we regulate by hugging and having that touch, and you know, having like our heartbeats close to each other is like something that really helps him. So yeah, all of those things, it kind of depends on the child, but those things I've realized day to day, I will kind of like now it comes into my head a lot quicker than, you know, say a year ago I would have been like, well, how do I cope with this, what do I do? And I just ended up
Yeah.
just getting angry basically.
Yeah. And going back to that part about the interoceptive awareness, because anyone listening might be like, what do you mean you go to the toilet? And they might be thinking, what on earth? But it is getting in touch with them sensations and noticing them and being like, why haven't I been meeting that need? And how does that impact me when I don't? Because even for myself, now at my daughter's school, I used to go and pick them up and I'd be desperate for the toilet. And there's no toilets. And then I'd have like a 25-minute drive back home and I'd be like, girls, get in the car and mummy needs a wee and all of
Yeah,
this. Whereas now I actually buzz the reception door at the front and I ask I tell the receptionist as I'm walking to the toilet, I'm like, I'm just going to the toilet and I'm meeting a need,
yeah,
but most people wouldn't do that. And then the impact of not is taking it out on the kids, rushing, not feeling good, not feeling comfortable. So it's the more we can like
yeah,
tune in and connect with ourselves, um, the more we can
absolutely, yeah,
meet them needs. Yeah.
that's
So
it. Yeah, and I think,
mhm,
no, I was just going to say, like, just things like having the morning walk and stuff like that
yeah,
helps me to remember to meet those needs, because it's almost like, okay, so later on I'm going to remember, and I sort of like plan my day in my head, because I'm like, I'll make sure that I'll take snacks when I collect Freddie from school, otherwise I think he will
perfect.
have a moment at the play park, you know, it's just
Yeah,
things like that. So yeah,
yeah, planning ahead. Yeah,
yeah,
so we've spoke about this outside of this and how when you came to work with me, you kind of caught me in a bit of transition period of like 12-week program and bringing in somatic experience and sort of blending the two. What's the experience been like for you? How can you describe it or explain it, or what were your expectations? Has it met them? Yeah, just obviously I've asked you about 5 questions there, but can you speak to that?
yeah, absolutely. For me, I initially was because obviously you studied with the Jai Institute of Parenting, and I was
Mhm.
very much like trying to be a top student at the beginning, going through the workbooks, and the workbooks are great. And they're really helpful actually to learn about the nervous system side of things, because there was images all about the
Yeah,
polyvagal theory and the
yeah,
ladder and fight, flight, and freeze, and that was super helpful. And then as I think the weeks went on, and you brought in a lot more of the, or maybe I think you brought it in from the beginning, but I think I was just more aware of how much the somatic experiencing was helping me, because I was sort of halfway through, I was like becoming less of an A-star student with the workbooks,
yeah,
and I was realizing, wow, the feeling in my body and the somatic side of things is a lot more powerful, and it seems to
yeah,
be adding more value for me personally, because I would come to a call with you and not know that there's something I'm holding on to that was deep within me. And just through you kind of telling me, talking through how to, you know, plant your feet on the ground and feel within your body, you don't realize when you're sitting there every day getting on with your work or whatever, that there's things just stored in there. And when you
yeah,
actually sit there and listen to your body and feel, it's like, okay, I think I've got this funny feeling in my chest, or I think I've got this like, and I didn't realize that I could feel those things. And you have to really create that space for yourself to feel it. But when you do, and when you sit there with it, it's like, okay, I'm getting emotional, and all
yeah,
sorts of things come up. And I just found that absolutely fascinating, because creating the space and being there with those emotions, as difficult as it can be, and feeling that vulnerability was quite challenging in the beginning, but then as
yeah,
the weeks go on and as you build rapport with, you know, with whoever you're speaking to, like for you, and I don't know if you found this, but like towards the kind of latter part of the course, I was feeling so much more almost comfortable to do it. It would be like the
Yes,
emotions
yes,
almost come quicker. And so
yes,
I just found it just such a useful therapy. I've tried other therapies, more traditional therapies in the past, and they didn't, for me personally, it didn't have much of an effect. But this, for
yeah,
it just really, really, really helped. And it made me think I could probably sit there at home, you know, on my own and sit there and feel and probably
absolutely.
overcome things and yeah, kind of work on it myself day to day without,
Yeah,
you know, without have, I don't know, it's good to have the guidance, but there's probably little bits that I could do at home just by feeling in my body. And I think some
absolutely. Yeah,
people don't recognize this, but it's so good.
yeah. It sounds like they're, building that safety, because if it's not being safe to feel feelings, it takes a while to be with that, doesn't it? And then, I read something recently, and it was sort of describing this sort of experience, and how, at a part of our life, we had these feelings in the body. We had nobody helping us with these feelings, so they became suppressed and stored. Whereas now, in the space that we had together, it's, oh, isn't that interesting when somebody sits with you, when someone attunes with your nervous system, and you can stay with something, and it changes and it moves and it goes somewhere else, but it might have a discharge, a release. And that's
Mm.
never ever been possible until now, so it can be really quite powerful to have someone step into that role, and to give you that space and time that perhaps you might never have had, in the past.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is I've started to now, because of you, giving me this information and advice, I've now started to say to not so much my youngest because he doesn't quite get it. I did ask him and I got a funny answer, but like with my eldest, if he's really raging or he's going through a really difficult moment, afterwards I'll say, how did it feel when you wanted to kick the wall? Can you explain? And I asked him that last week, and he said it was like there was a ball of fire in my belly, and I was like, "What good answer! Like that's so amazing that now I
Yeah,
know what you were actually feeling in your body." And so,
I
just
love
for
that.
me, having that information gives me the tools to then know how to help him process it. um
Absolutely.
I did ask my youngest, yeah, asking George, who's 3, he was like, I just felt angry. And it's quite funny listening to the different answers, but as they get older and like the more that you do it, hopefully that will help them to just gain that emotional
Absolutely.
intelligence. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and oh, I'm not sure if my internet connection's breaking up on your side. It says
It's a
unstable.
little bit, yeah, breaking up a little bit.
I move it over, but then it goes into the sun slightly. Let's have a look. Can you still see me? We'll give that a go.
Yeah, the
Um,
connection now.
yeah, and that takes time. 3 years old, and it's like, he's learning language, isn't he? And then it's learning the sensations, to that language, just like ourselves. We as adults, we might say, "Oh, I feel angry," but then when someone says, "What does that feel like?" It's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." It's like feels like a big ball of fire. And then when children have that language, we can then use that language, and we can talk about our own balls of anger or volcanoes or whatever. And obviously there's kids books and things that we can read to help them with that. So yeah, and that
Yeah,
emotional intelligence that from such young age that they're gonna have. So
yeah.
you touched upon a couple of challenges with the course and things like that. What stands out as something that has been a challenge throughout the 12 weeks of working together, something that maybe you struggled with, or you still struggle with, or a limiting belief that you have, or anything like that?
I think that the biggest takeaway for me is that you cannot be the most, like, whatever you perceive as like the perfect parent in your mind, that is not going to happen overnight. And that is not going to happen in 12 weeks. You are going
No.
to make progress. You're going to be better than you were before. But this is a massive, this is like a shift that takes time, because think about how many years of our childhoods we would have spent like being socially um kind of what's the word, you're molded in a way that kind of takes you away from your true essence and your
Yeah.
authentic self, and you have to almost undo and unpick of that, and it takes a lot of time. So I look at it like, right, that's a positive, the fact that my eldest now goes into school with less kind of like pushback, and
Yeah.
that's positive. That there's various things I can say that I have massively improved in 12 weeks, but there's a lot of stuff that I do need to work on myself personally, where I'm like,
Yeah.
right, it's going to take a bit more time. But the awareness for me, the fact that I'm now aware of, like, oh my goodness, I thought that some things that my husband did were like the problem, and now I'm like, I actually think it might have been me that was the problem. And just
Mm,
having that like sort of aha moment with these things, and you're like, oh, okay, that I can be very defensive, and I've been told that, but I was like defending against the comment of me being defensive, and now I'm
yeah.
just learning a lot about myself, where I'm like, okay, so that's my kind of doing, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. It just means I've still got a bit more work to do, and
Yeah.
it will take time. But and it's
Yeah.
and the journey's amazing because you have your ups and downs, like trying to heal from various things that might have happened. And it doesn't mean that I'm like, if you're a parent that has not had like a big T trauma, which I haven't, I have to say, like, I didn't go through like major kind of like adversity growing up. I did go through a very messy divorce with my parents when I was 16, 17. But other than that, I would like to say my childhood was quite a happy one. But there are still lots of things that every single human being goes through growing up
Yeah.
that will affect the way you are. And this
Absolutely.
and somatic experiencing, parent coaching, any type of coaching is going to unpick and like help you reprogram these beliefs that you have. So yeah, I do still have beliefs that like, oh, okay, I'm probably not confident enough um to do that. So I can find myself being quite permissive sometimes when I'm scared of a angry reaction from one of my children, and that is something I'm still working on. But at
Yeah.
least I'm aware of it,
And you're
and so
still
I'll
working on
continue.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got
And I think,
to do it.
yeah, and I really like that because sometimes when people watch my videos, they see someone and they'll say, "Oh, in 12 weeks it changed my life," and da da da. And then other clients will be like, "Oh, I watched that and I didn't feel like that." Like yourself, I've seen where I've made progress, and we're like, and I'm not here to be like, this is gonna do everything in 12 weeks, like clever marketing copy does. And the difference is what you do outside of the calls as well and what you continue to do. So it's like personal training. You could be with a personal trainer for 12 weeks. You could go 1 hour a week and do the exercise. But outside of that, you need to be eating well, you need to be getting your steps in, you need to be having sort of a healthy lifestyle. And then when that 12 weeks finishes, it's like I need to continue. And you know like you say, there's lots that I can do on my own, and that looks like journaling, that can look like breath work, that can look like continuing with therapists, things like that. There's so much more to it, isn't there, than saying, oh, 12 weeks doing my program is going to change everything. So it's
Mm.
good that you highlighted that the way that you did, and but also acknowledging, yeah, there are things that I've taken away from it and changes that I've made.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, just because if I'm saying like, oh, it's not like a perfect transformation, you're going to be a different person in 12 weeks, doesn't mean that it's not valuable and not worth the investment, because I would do it all over again if I had the opportunity. And I would, and pay for somatic experiencing as well, because that for me is has just been so helpful. So I will hopefully continue to have that form of therapy, because I think that there's a lot of things that it can help to break through and help some blockages and kind of things that are stored within me that I still need help with. But yeah, the course was incredible and it did help me a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And just to add there, in case anyone's like listening and a little bit confused, what I brought in somatic experience and elements into our work whilst I'm in my training. And I've done 17 months of personal one-to-one somatic experiencing. So that's what you experienced is what I brought from training. And next year I'll be able to offer it as a standalone outside of parent coaching um in my first year of training, just in case anyone's thinking, somatic experiencing, where did you have that? It was blended into the work, wasn't it? However, you might be in a place now where my recommendation or someone else's that you'll go and find a somatic experiencing practitioner to work intensely on that. So just
Mm.
to clarify that for people listening. So if you were to describe the experience to a friend, if a friend was like, Laura, what did you do with Fiona from Happy Meat Parenting, how would you describe it?
I
I can
think I
see
would
it.
just It's a tricky one because I
Yeah,
have people that I talk to quite a lot about what I want, how I want my business to look and how I want to help people.
yeah,
And I can see sometimes people looking a bit confused, a bit like, well,
yeah.
why would you need a coach to help you raise your children? So it's quite hard to describe to people that are not that maybe have not heard of conscious parenting before, for
Yeah,
example. But I think the best way for me to describe it is it's a bit like having therapy with a really, really, really good like parenting coach that guides you and knows exactly how to give you, because you're not really giving the answers for my specific children. Every child is different. You haven't met
yeah,
my children. You're only going by what I've told you about
yeah,
them. So the coaching is interesting because you know that a lot of the time the answers are within me.
yeah,
And that's especially when, looking at the Jai workbook and learning all about the nervous system. Once you really kind of get your head around that, it's like, okay, I know that these are my go-to patterns that I'm probably likely to keep falling into. So it's yeah, it's I would describe it as a mixture between like coaching but therapy as well, which like actually for me was the perfect solution because I definitely needed a bit of both. So yeah, I hope that helps. I hope that's like a good description. But
yeah. Yeah, I mean, even myself, I find it hard to describe. And on my website, it does say that I do parent coaching with a therapeutic approach, given some of the qualifications that I've done. Because I think the blend of the two is quite important. But someone might have had a lot of therapy, and then they can just roll with coaching and go with it. Whereas I sort of bring in the both. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's it's been an experience together. And how are you moving forward? What we were just touching upon before, saying, it's been 12 weeks, but there's still things that I need to do. What will you be doing sort of in your home life to continue, integrating and working with this, everything that you've learned?
What I will be doing is doing a lot more reading on the scientific side of it because I mean I love books anyway, and I love reading
Yeah,
about, you know, child like brain development, child development, psychology, that
yeah,
kind of thing. So I'm going to be continuing my reading. I'm going to be doing a lot more reading about the mind body connection because
yeah,
that side of it, again going back to the somatic side of it, it's like feeling in your body. A lot of us have forgotten how to do that,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'm going to be doing a lot of kind of learning about that. And I probably will invest in a course eventually for that for myself for my own business. But the other thing I will be doing a lot more of is it's. I think I struggled with like listening to my children. Being, on the course it talks about all about being a active listener. And
Yeah,
I think at the beginning, the first couple of weeks, I realized, oh my goodness, I'm not actually a very good active listener with my
yeah,
children. And I was getting annoyed when they wouldn't listen to me. And I was like, well, who'd have thought it? If I think that they're annoying because they're not listening to me, and then I've realized that I'm actually not a very good listener, there's kind of like a pattern here that's, you know, so that was a fascinating thing. So, it's just continuing learning and implementing the things that I did learn through you and through the course. But doing my own learning as well and just
yeah,
continuing to kind of like up with the scientific side of things, like I said, just the mind body connection and keeping aware of my own feelings and my own triggers, because although I'm very aware of them, sometimes in the moment you do forget and you do see
yeah, of
yourself just
course.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, like I've always been quite good at when I say being good at being angry, I've never suppressed my anger. I've always been
yeah,
like okay to shout and yell, but actually there's healthy ways to be angry, and that's what we're
absolutely.
learning
Yeah,
to do in our household now. So
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, so that's
that healthy dysregulation. Yeah,
yeah.
and your business is called the Mindful Generation, is that right?
Yeah, the mindful
Yeah,
generation. So
yeah,
yeah, I've got a website, and I'm on Instagram as well as the mindful generation.
yeah. And what's your sort of ideal client to work with? Is there a specific age or specific topics, that you work with parents on?
Yeah, the sort of age group, I guess it's like millennial parents, so kind of I guess my kind of age group, just because we can resonate and relate, I guess, of children who are within the imprint years, so kind of 1 to 7, so they're
Yeah,
still living in the moment, and that's the kind of client that I will be working with. And I'm probably going to start doing a lot more content around parents of boys, just because I've
Yeah,
got two boys. So I'm
yeah,
probably going to start doing a lot more kind of uh, like marketing and Instagram posts, and hopefully helpful like free resources around that as well.
yeah, yeah. Have you ever connected with my friend Alita?
I haven't connected with her. I do follow her, and I think her content is amazing. So yeah, like, and she talks a lot about the healthy aggression and that kind of stuff, and
Yes,
that's really helpful.
yes. It was
Yeah,
funny actually because I was literally thinking about you. I was thinking about her. I was thinking about the fact that you've got boys because I do think there's a difference. You know, I've got two girls, and yeah, Alita, like yourself, reached out, you know, many years ago, and she's gone soaring with her business and does amazing. So might be a good one to drop into her DMs.
yeah. Yeah, I was looking at a couple of her things yesterday that were specifically for boys, and I was like, that's going to help me so much. And I saved one of her posts, and I thought I should reach out to her. So yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's been lovely, Laura. You know, you should be really proud of what you've done because it's it's a brave, vulnerable thing to show up for yourself each week the way that you did, and to sit with the feelings and to be with them and to be in the discomfort and to confront the areas that you know you might have felt guilty around or whatever. To be with that and to bring that is something that not everybody does. So you know you should be proud of yourself for everything that you've done. And I look forward to seeing where your business takes you and hearing about all the families that you touch and you help. So thank you very much.
thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you, and honestly, you've helped me so much. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And I'm going to stop recording.